Well, hello there, everyone. It's Nina Marie Trapani for Simon Says Stamp, and welcome to my latest Not a Card project. I am really excited to share this with you because we're going to be making some fabric pumpkins. But don't let the word fabric stop you from trying this out because you don't need to know how to sew or do anything special to make these beautiful little pumpkins. I admire people who can take fabric and quilt and sew beautiful projects such as bags and little totes and all sorts of wonderful things. I am not one of those people, unfortunately. I just don't have the patience for it. But I'm just as inspired when I see fabrics. I love the different patterns and textiles, and it's such a beautiful product to work with. So I'm always looking for something fun to do that's a little bit non-traditional. And now that the fall season is approaching, I'm seeing all these wonderful pumpkins out there made from so many different types of textiles. I've seen velvet and burlap, yarn, like crocheted pumpkins, so many different things. Well, when I found these really cute styrofoam pumpkins, I decided I was going to make some for myself using Tim Holtz fabrics. I'm using his blue bundle for my project today, but you could totally use Halloween or autumn colored fabrics from his collection to make a more seasonal pumpkin, or if you're more of a non-traditional person like I am, and maybe use pinks or other fun colors. I chose blues because blue is a very dominant color in my home. I don't decorate that much for the fall season. I save a lot of my energy for Christmas because I love to decorate the entire house. So I don't really do much for the fall season, but I thought if I had some cute little pumpkins, I could pair those with some of my fall stems and just have a little bit of something special for the season to decorate my house with. So that's why I chose the blue fabrics. The best part about this project, like I said at the beginning, is that you don't have to sew to make these. So I have these cream colored styrofoam pumpkins that you can get over at Simon Says Stamp, and they're great. They are a nice cream color, so they're not going to show the color of the pumpkin through the fabric. But the best part is that the stem from these pumpkins is removable. And this is what's key for building these pumpkins. We need the stem to be able to be removed so that we can tuck all the fabric inside of the pumpkin. So I'm going to go ahead and take one of my fat quarters here and start cutting this down. So you get a lot of fabric in these bundles. Each sheet is 18 by 21 inches. So that's a lot of fabric to work with. Now remember, I am not a sewer, so I did not iron or wash this fabric prior to use. I think those of you who are a sewer, you probably do something along those lines, but for this particular project, it's not necessary. We're going to be wrapping our pumpkins and pulling this fabric super tight, and we're already going to have creases in the fabric anyway from the technique, so I didn't even bother going ahead and trying to get any of these fold lines out of the fabric. Now, in order to build these, we only need a couple of very simple supplies. You're going to want some collage medium. I prefer this particular adhesive because it does dry matte. And I'm also going to have a paintbrush or any sort of like dowel, something that you can fit through the hole of the pumpkin to start feeding that fabric through the hole that the stem came from. You're just going to take a corner of that fabric, pull it over the pumpkin, then take your tool and start pushing that fabric into the hole. Oftentimes what I do prior to starting to wrap my pumpkin is I'll actually stick my tool through that hole and widen it out a little bit and get it a little deeper so I have lots of room to fill the pumpkin with fabric. At this point, I have two of the corners fed into the pumpkin. So I'm going to now take my glue and just put a very small amount of this on the sides of the pumpkin that are still exposed. That way, as I bring the rest of this fabric on the sides in, there's going to be some of that glued down onto the pumpkin, and it's going to help form the shape a little bit. It's also going to help hold the fabric down. We're shoving all of this fabric into that hole of the pumpkin anyway, so it's actually going to be pretty secure, and you really don't need that much adhesive to hold these together. Honestly, I feel very confident with the force of all that fabric shoved into this pumpkin, and then we're going to have the stem inside. I'm not worried about these pumpkins falling apart, but I do find that the glue is helpful in helping to form the sides and like roundness of this shape. It just helps with all that fabric gathering. So as you can see, I kind of tuck the sides of the fabric in and then bring that corner up and over, and then I shove that little bit of fabric down into the pumpkin. After sticking the rest of the fabric down into the pumpkin, I can come back in with my tweezers and help finesse the shape a little bit. But really, you don't need to do a lot of work after the fact because these pumpkins come together so beautifully. The fabric bunches in and forms a really tight fit around the pumpkin. And I like that each one has a slightly different feel. So at this point, we just need to add the stem back in. That's really easy. You're just going to add a little bit of glue to the bottom of the stem just to help secure everything and keep it in place, and then just shove it down into the hole. Depending upon how much fabric you have in your hole, you may need to trim the stem a little bit. I'll show you how I did that in the next pumpkin. But as you can see, it fits beautifully back into place, and now we have these darling little fabric covered pumpkins. So depending upon which size pumpkin you're working with, you will need a slightly different sized sheet of fabric. So for the smaller pumpkins, the average fabric size I was using was about 7.5 inches square. And then for the larger pumpkins, I was cutting the fabric to be about 10 inches square. That's a rough guide. You don't have to have it exact. But you'll just trim your fabric down. Then again, like we did for the larger pumpkin, I'm just going to take my tool and help shove that fabric down into the hole so that way I get a really nice tight fit around the pumpkin. Once you have the first two sides shoved into the pumpkin, then you're going to go ahead and put a little bit of adhesive on the other two sides as you start wrapping the fabric around. When I'm putting the collage medium down, I'm being very careful to put a very small amount of glue down because I don't want to saturate my fabric. I just want to help keep the fabric tacked down as I'm working with it. And these come together so quickly. I had a lot of fun just sitting down and covering each one of these pumpkins during a course of a whole evening, and I ended up with such a cute little set. Now for the smaller pumpkins, those are the ones that I found I had to trim the stems down just a little bit because we have obviously a smaller pumpkin, there's less space. So I do want to trim the end of my stem down just a little bit to make sure it fits better. I always like to check it first. I see how much I feel like I need to cut off, and then I can go ahead, trim it with my scissors, then take a little bit of glue and then stick it right back down in the hole that it came from. These pumpkins would look adorable with some yarn wrapped pumpkins. I've seen some of those that look like they have like maybe a cable knit sweater effect, and that would look adorable as a fun texture to complement these fabric ones. One of my favorites is the one with the script text. I love script anything, especially like background stamps. So this reminded me of a background stamp, and I loved how you can see the different portions of the writing, making it almost look like it's wrapped up in a letter. Isn't that cool? And just because I've used blues for my pumpkins does not mean that you have to use the same fabrics for yours. If you would love to have a more traditional color palette, Tim Holtz has a lot of beautiful different fabrics in his collection. And Simon Says Stamp has them available as fat quarters, or you can buy them individually by the yard. So you have lots of options for choosing which patterns or colors you'd like to create your pumpkins. I really love the fact that you can customize these to really fit your home decor. They're such a simple project and make a really beautiful statement. They're going to look so cute on a little tray in my house amongst all of my other everyday decor items, but bring a little bit of that seasonality flair to my home, which I love. My plan is to pair these with a few floral stems and leaves that I have to decorate the house. Like I said, I don't go crazy with fall decor, but I love to go all out for Christmas. But this is allowing me to get a little bit of that fall season inside of the home. I hope you were inspired by this project. This is so easy and simple. You don't have to know how to sew in order to enjoy these beautiful fabrics and create something beautiful for not only yourself, but these would also make a great gift. I'm actually planning on making a second set that I can give to my mom so she can use it to decorate her house. Well, friends, thank you so much for watching this video. If you would like to find all the supplies that I used today, you can find them in the video description and also on our Simon Says Stamp blog. Thank you so much for joining me today. I will be back very soon with more to share, but until next time, I hope you have a wonderful day.
Hi there, I'm Heidi, Simon's mama and founder at simonsaysstamp.com. Thank you so much for watching our video. If you like what you just saw, Be sure to press the thumbs up and subscribe to see more great content.